Good morning. Really, I'm happy that I'm addressing young people. Yesterday and on Thursday, the other politicians, they address each other. And I am going to tell you something important because, you know, we established the Diplomatic Academy as an independent institution. And among our teachers are just the former politicians, prime ministers, ministers, generals of the Czech army, diplomats. And the mission of my diplomatic academy is to share a unique experience. And our mission is not make the same mistakes we have made. So we need to tell you something important. It is that if we want to cultivate the political scene, we need a risky dialogue which is taken seriously. Because, you know, Europe is a strange continent. We are 47 countries in Europe. We do not understand each other. The only common language of Europe is translation. And Europe is very strange because no one is capable of conquering Europe. So we need a real dialogue, and ICD is a good instrument for a risky and serious dialogue. You know, in the communist regime in my country, we asked for dialogue with those who were in power. Charta 77, Václav Havel, Lech Walesa, and Solidarność. So the real leaders, they asked for the real dialogue with those who are in power. And they took a risk. Havel, he was in prison. Lech Walesa, he was in prison. Because they took very seriously so the position and the dialogue with the power. I remember the atmosphere we had in 1989. It was a nice time. We were demonstrating in the streets. My wife gave sack to our smallest, the youngest boy, youngest son. And we were drinking champagne every evening because it was a time of the profound change. And it was the fruit of very intensive dialogue in the society. And if I am asked, what does it mean democracy? My answer is that there's just one very important phenomenon for democracy. It is well-functioning opposition. Just the system which has well-functioning and real political opposition is stable. You can see a situation in Syria today, in Egypt, in Libya. So why we are facing such a complicated, such a very serious situation in those countries? Because of non-existence of the real opposition. So democracy is the strongest system because of the opposition. Because opposition is the only tool how to change people in power. If there is no opposition in our systems, we will collapse, and it is from the long-term period very important so for the existence of democracy. So, and as I said at the very beginning, Russia and Europe, they need each other. In 1990, Gorbachev was very, very brave because he accomplished very serious dialogue, risky dialogue. And what was the end? Gorbachev is hero of Europe. And due to the Gorbachev position, so the Berlin Wall fell down, and we are in the free and democratic continent. But Gorbachev lost Soviet Union. It was extremely risky, and he lost too much. In Russia, he is not very popular. In Russia, Gorbachev is a hidden person. No one is interested in listening to him because he takes responsibility for the end of the Soviet Empire. But we are celebrating him because he helped us. And fortunately, Gorbachev was a leader of the Soviet Communist Party. Could you imagine how difficult the discussion was in the Central Committee of the Communist Party in 1989 or in 1990? So the discussion between the Stalinists, the opportunists, and the Democrats within the Central Committee of the Communist Party, it had to be a very tough discussion and very tough conflict. But Gorbachev, he gave the chance Europe to be free, independent, and democratic. As I said, Gorbachev, he lost Soviet Union. Soviet Union has disappeared. And Europe was integrated, NATO expanded, and we are in the period of the end of the black-white division in Europe. Fortunately, it is good for us because we are Europeans and we know how important it is for us to be in the fully integrated Europe and in the Europe which is democratic and prosperous. And now, some people think that this is the end of the story. It is not the end of the story. What has been changed, it is a question. So where is the line between the democracy and authoritarian regimes, or democracy or totalitarian regimes? Where are the lines? Because the lines are maybe today not visible. And the test is today Ukraine. From my point of view, Ukraine is the test of the new type of relations between Russia and Europe. Because Europe says, we want to expand. We have neighborhood policy. We want to welcome one day Ukraine as a full-fledged EU member state. And Russia says, so we want to revitalize our power in the former Soviet Union. Because we speak Russian, and in all the countries where the Russian community does exist, in all the countries where the Russian language is the dominant language, we have our national interests. And Europe says our will to expand is legitimate. And Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin says, my policy to improve the position of Russia on the territory of the former Soviet Union is legitimate. And the conflict does exist, and unfortunately, Ukraine is a victim of this global conflict between Russia and European Union. Russia is not a highly developed country. So there's a poor infrastructure, and the production in Russia is not the production with the high technology. So if you are in Russia, if you travel in Russia, if you want to buy something, you buy just the European products, European or Japanese cars. So Europe is present in every single shop in Russia. Russia is not capable of living without Europe, but we need Russia because of gas, because of the natural resources, because of the real power of Russia. So we need to do something for calming the atmosphere in Ukraine, to calm down the war, and we need to have a serious dialogue between Russia, EU, and Ukraine. So, and it will be very risky, but we need a dialogue because we need to take things seriously. And because I was shown that I have just 5 minutes. So just the very last sentence. It seems to me that in Ukraine, it's very difficult, the phenomenon that the oligarchy is in power. Because, please believe me, political solution in the hands of the politicians. Because politicians, they could take a risky dialogue because they could lose the next elections. But if you are rich, if you are primarily concentrated on your private business, so you take easily the politics, and you are ready anytime to go back from the political life to the private sector, because you are mentally concentrated on your private business. So that's why I believe that the solution is to be in the hands of the politicians, because the politicians, they have the future. They want to find a solution, and they want to win the next elections. And you can win the next elections if you are ready to risk the loss of your elections. So this is the only way. So my message is that for you, for the young generation, to be courageous enough to realize very serious and risky dialogue, take it very seriously, and it is the way how to push things in the right direction. And please take a risk, because you can lose too much personally, but the society gain if you are brave enough to take a risk. So Russia needs Europe because Europe is an example of the well-functioning democracy with the existence of the opposition. We need Russia because Russia today show us that Russia is capable of taking the risk of the solution, because Russia is ready to support Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin despite all the sanctions, despite all the complications, because they are ready to take the risk. So, believe me, if you are courageous enough to take a risk, you gain you gain the democracy, and the democracy is based on the real dialogue. Thank you so much for inviting me, for everything what has been done by ICD, and I wish you every success in your future political life. Thank you.